our Splash Studio online. I'm going to be taking you step by step through our painting poppy field. My name is Sid. I'll be your lead artist, like I said. If there's any point that you want to change anything in this, maybe change the color of the skies, types of trees, color of flowers, what have you, feel free to do so. You don't need to do the exact same thing that I'll be doing. I'll just be keeping mine as close to the original as I can. So, before we get started, you guys, you should have a few things here. You should have some paint, so I've already gotten mine on a palette here. You can use everything except brown. We won't be using brown for this particular painting today. And you should have a roll of brushes wrapped in these gorgeous Gucci reds. You can take those out of that. And you should also have this cup. You can fill it up with water. We are going to be keeping our brushes just like I've got right here, bristle side down in that water cup whenever we are not using them. That way they're a lot easier to clean off and keep using throughout the entire painting. So to get started, we are going to be working on the background colors. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my largest brush right here, our large flat brush, and I'm going to be taking blue and white, so you can adjust how much of each color goes in, but just blue and white paint today to start. And we are going to start with painting in our sky. So the top, a little bit more than a third, I'd say, is going to be blue. So all I'm doing is taking this blue and white mixture, and with this large brush, painting across in long horizontal strokes, just like that. Now, if you guys want to kind of have it be a little bit more interesting, create a bit more texture and more depth, you can grab either pure blue or pure white, whatever works for you. I'll take a bit of pure blue here. So pure blue paint. And I'm going to just go right over where I just painted, blending it in. So once you've got your sky in, you feel pretty content with that, we are going to move on to our clouds. So for that, I am taking my larger round brush and some pure white paint, so nothing added, just pure white paint, and I'm going to start. The tops of clouds tend to be a little bit taller and fluffier, the bottoms tend to be a little bit flatter. So to get those nice fluffy cloud tops, I'm going to be making some circular motions with my brush. I don't really plan it out as I do this. I like just kind of letting my hand do whatever. You'll notice since the paint is still a bit wet, it will blend. I find that gives it kind of a nice shaded texture almost. And they taper off near the ends. So something along those lines. Again, feel free to add more paint. If you want to not have it be blended as much as mine is, do feel free to wait a little bit until it dries. Have as many or as few of these as you guys would like. If you want some storm clouds rolling in, you do you, whatever weather you are feeling. Once you guys have your sky and your clouds, we are going to move on to the background color of the grass. So to start, I'm going to grab that smaller flat brush, so the smaller version of the one we just used to paint in our sky. And I'm going to mix equal parts green and yellow for this next step to make a nice lime green color. And I'm just going to take this brush, I'm going to hold it just like this so it looks big to me. And I'm going to go with short vertical strokes down towards my bottom part of my canvas. And we are going to be adding in the mountains later on along that horizon line, so it doesn't really matter if it doesn't look pretty. Mine's not right now, that's okay. Down, I'd say about an inch or an inch and a half should be fine in terms of thickness for this stripe of green. Right. Something like that. Once you are done with this green-orange mixture, you're going to clean off your brush then grab some pure green and start making another row of short vertical strokes right underneath that last one. We will be adding in grass blades later on, as well as our poppies and trees, so don't stress out too much. If something doesn't look great right now, we're not even close to being done, so don't worry. So if there's anything you do that you don't like, you're welcome to just let it dry and paint right over it. So if you are happy with just these two colors, feel free to carry this green down. I'm going to add one more layer of green. So I'm mixing green and blue together to get a darker shade of green, just slightly. A little bit of blue goes a long way in this case. And I'm just going to be adding that in right underneath. So same texture, vertical strokes. You can make them longer, you can make them shorter, whatever works for you. Whatever kind of texture you are feeling today. And the next step is going to be to actually add in those mountains along the horizon line. So to do that, I am taking the smallest brush we have, our tiny detail brush, and I'm going to be mixing blue and yellow together to get a nice true green. You're going to want to make sure it's darker than the other greens you used before. If it's not quite dark enough, you can take a tiny amount of black. A little bit of black goes a long way, so just be very careful with how much you end up adding. So the first thing is I'm going to be making a nice sort of, it doesn't need to be perfect, but a sort of straight line right across my horizon. And just like I've said before, it does not matter if it's perfect or not. So again, I'm starting off blue, yellow, and a little bit of black. Alright, so now that I've got my horizon line on there, I'm going to get started with the mountains. So, to do that, still using same color, same technique, but all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start doing the tops of the mountains first for me. I find I like to do the shape first before I get into the rest of it, so I'm just going to be coming in here and I'm going to let my hand sort of do what it wants. I find it makes it a little bit more organic. So I'm making my mountains very tall. You don't have to make it just quite as tall as mine. Feel free to play around with the height. Maybe you've got trees in the background. You don't do it. But I'm just kind of going and letting my hand trail along and do whatever it wants. So then using this color, I am going to just fill in all of this space right here. So, feel free to keep working if you would like, but I would highly recommend taking a bit of a break just to let everything dry completely before we get started on the trees and our flowers. So feel free to pause the video and resume it whenever you guys would like, but keep up the good work. You guys are doing great. Alright, you guys, so once you are ready to move on and the background is dry, we're going to get started on the trees. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the center of the tree, and then I'm going to create the shape on the outside. So we're going to start with just a straight line wherever you want the center of the tree to be. So I'll show you guys what I mean by that. So do keep in mind, the closer the trees are to the foreground, the taller they're going to be. The more they go back towards where those mountains are, so the higher up on your canvas they get, the shorter they'll be. So this one right here is very, very tall. And then this one right up here is a little bit shorter because perspective makes things closer look bigger and farther away look smaller. So I'm taking my small detail brush and I'm using that same dark green mixture, so blue, yellow, and maybe a little bit of black if you wanted it a bit darker. Totally fine with blue, yellow, and a little black. And I'm just going to start placing as many trees as I want. So I kind of want one right over here. So just really going in, placing lines wherever you would like them to be. And they don't need to be perfect or anything like that. So I'm only going to do 5. You can have more if you would like. Feel free to play around with that shape. But now you can kind of switch between your small and large round brushes, so both of these sort of brushes. And we are going to start, think of these as kind of like triangle shapes with irregular sides. So I'm going to start, if this is the top of my tree, I'm just going to start, I like to make a dabbing motion again, and just bring some of these edges out. So this is super, super rough. If it helps, you can always do a zigzag line, so I'll kind of show you guys how to do that, and it gets progressively bigger the farther down your sleeve goes until you get to the bottom. If it helps you and you'd rather just do a straight triangle, go for it, and then just sort of fix up the edges. But do keep in mind they're bigger near the bottom and they get thinner near the top. Alright everybody, so once you are back and your canvas is dry again, we're going to add a few of the flower stems. So we are going to take that dark green, or really honestly whatever shade of green you want. You can have multiple. I'm taking my small detail brush again, and I'm just going to be doing some vertical strokes. They do not need to look like they are coming out of anything. We just need to kind of mimic that there are flowers there. So in order to do that, do keep in mind the ones closer to the bottom of the canvas are going to be taller and bigger. The ones near the back are going to be shorter and smaller. Alright, so same dark green, whatever shade you really want for this. I'm going to use the same dark one that we were using for the trees, and I'm just going to come in and do some short, well, long on the bottom. Vertical strokes, just sort of putting some flower stems in. And you don't need to have them everywhere, they're just there to sort of simulate that there are flowers growing. We are going to be adding in flowers without stems later on. So just really sort of randomly, sporadically placing these wherever you feel they're necessary. Alright you guys, so once you got this and your grasses and everything are completely dry, we're going to start with the poppies, so, or whatever flowers you would like to make them be. So in order to do that, I'm going to switch between both of my round brushes, so both of the ones that look like this. And to start, I'm only going to be using the red, so the base color, or whatever color you decide. So again, I'm taking pure red to start. I might add a tiniest bit of white just to make it a little bit more opaque. Not enough to make it super pink though. Alright, so much like the grasses, the flowers at the bottom are going to be larger and then get smaller as they go towards the middle of our canvas. So I'm starting with my largest brush, and I'm going to start sort of just by making rough circular shapes. Now, I'm not really sort of stressing out about what these are actually looking like. It's more of just a suggestion of a flower than the actual flowers themselves. Short sort of circular strokes until I get a rough shape. And again, the ones down here are going to be a lot larger than the ones in the background. So just going in here and adding in some flowers. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of less worried about what they look like the farther back they get. I'm just sort of going to start dabbing at my canvas at that point. Might even switch to my smaller round brush, so the tiny detail brush, this guy right here, and keep doing what I've been doing. So you guys can load this up with flowers if you want. Feel free to just kind of do whatever you want at this point with these. Again, just working on the base color of the flowers. And now, as you guys can kind of see, I'm going in with the smallest ones, or the ones farther away are going to end up being in almost little dots. So feel free to kind of, if you want to just make them a dot, go for it. I kind of like that look. But you can also make them a little bit bigger, beef them up a little bit so they're not quite so tiny. Once your flowers are in and you feel pretty content with them, we're going to start adding a little bit of a shadow to these. So you can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to be mixing up blue into some of my red, so just a little. Just enough to darken it. I don't want it to be super purpley, just a little bit darker than the red that we had. If you would like to use a little bit of black, that is entirely okay, but I'm not. I like to keep it a little bit brighter than that. So then wherever you kind of want shadows, you're going to just do a similar thing. I'm going to mainly probably focus that on the inside of my flowers, or near the inside, since poppies have those wonderful dark centers. And just go around adding this in to my flowers. If it's not quite dark enough, like I said, do feel free to add a little bit of black, and that'll help darken up the centers, or wherever you decide to put these. Alright, so once you guys are finished with that step, we're going to add some highlights. So to do that, I'm going to mix orange, red, to get a nice bright orangey red color, and then some white. Just a little bit, not a lot. Enough to make it brighter than that initial color we put down. Alright, and then using this fiery color, we're just going to kind of add this into the roughly about the left side of the flowers, really wherever you feel like some highlights would play off the petals. And if you put too much of this color down, go back with either that darker red or that pure red, and just add it in wherever you would like. So again, just going in, adding in highlights wherever you feel necessary. The very last step I have though, if you guys would like, is to sign your painting. So to do that, you can do whatever color you want, but I'm just going to take some pure white paint and my small detail brush, and I just like to initial mine over in this corner so everyone can know I made this wonderful painting while I was at home. So that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today for Splash Studio Online. I hope you guys had fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. So remember to stay safe. If you guys post any of our finished products or projects, we would love to see the final photos, so do feel free to tag us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., whatever platform you decide to post those on, and we will see you for the next session. Thanks guys, stay safe.